hard.
I know. I'm like, if this is beginner, what's intermediate? What's up, guys? It is your girl, Sarah from Sarah Styles here. Welcome to Monday. Every single Monday, I have a live video with other resellers, entrepreneurs on reselling. And today we are going to be talking about taxes and bookkeeping. It is that time of year. So I have Melissa, Liz, and Nicole. Melissa, they're all resellers. Nicole is a accountant. The rest of us are not. We just own small businesses and have done, Liz has been done bookkeeping and done business for 20 years, 15, 10, a lot of years. Don't tell us in a minute. But we're just on to talk. Feel free to ask questions, but kind of just tell you what we do as far as bookkeeping and taxes go. Full disclaimer, Nicole is the only one who is an accountant. The rest of us, it's just what we do. We are not giving out accounting advice. I highly recommend that if you have further questions or you really want to know specifics, and even things that we say, check in with a CPA in your state, find someone to work with. But that disclaimer is out there. So now this is going to be very meaty, I'm sure of it. So let's jump right in. I'm going to quickly have you guys say who you are, a little bit about your background. And then if you guys in the comments, feel free to leave some information about you. This is as much of a community for the people on the video as in the comments as well. So feel free to drop questions. Let us know who you are and why you're here. So we'll start, Melissa. You're right there. We'll just go Melissa and then kind of round in a circle.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm Mint Moose on Poshmark. I sell mostly on Poshmark and Mercari. I've done like a little bit on eBay, but it's time intensive, so I don't really do that very much. I am a full-time mom. I homeschool my kids, and I also run a business coaching services. And I've been reselling for 4 years now.
And did you have businesses, because you do a business coaching thing too, did you have businesses before reselling is kind of where you started?
Well, I've never owned my own business, but I have helped with other small businesses. I have 15 years experience.
That's what I was getting to, because I mean, we chatted and I know that you had more experience than just the reselling. I couldn't remember exactly. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I've learned a lot from you in our last talk that we had this time last year on things to do. So I'm excited to talk with you. Nicole, what's up? Tell us a little bit. Nicole is a serial entrepreneur. She does all the things all the time. So I'm sure she's going to have a whole laundry list of things on top of being a reseller and accountant. She's always very busy.
Hi, so my name is Nicole Couloute. My Instagram is Nicole Couloute. I'm a serial entrepreneur, as she said. I'm also an accountant. So accountant is my main gig. And then I also do a lot of fun things because I'm a very fun individual. So I do a lot of things for fun as well to keep myself occupied. I do some influencer stuff every now and then. What else do I do? I always forget all the stuff I have going on, but I have ebooks, courses, all the things.
You have, I believe, I can't check my YouTube, so someone wants to check. I'm almost positive I remembered to put their links down below. If I didn't, I will after the video. But Nicole does have an accounting course, right? Right. As well as you do bookkeeping and accounting specific for resellers, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So if you're looking for an accountant, because reselling I think is a bit different, you can still find, accountants and stuff, but it is very specific. And Nicole is a reseller and an accountant. So if you are looking for someone to do it or have a little bit more conversations with, or maybe take a little bit more of a course, Nicole's information will be down in the description. Hi, Liz. How are you? Nice to see your face. We chat all the time. I see your text. And
yes, it is nice. Yeah, I see your faces often because I watch your YouTubes.
I know.
Well, I'm Liz Carrison. I realize you on almost every platform, a version of that. I've been on Poshmark for 8 years. Pretty consistent. The first year wasn't so, but after that, pretty consistent. I went full time about 3 years ago, and it was always on the side until about 3 years ago. And before that, my husband and I owned our own medical equipment company. We did it's like $1 million a year income before expenses type of a business, but
I love her already.
Good.
I said,
And you're just like, $1 million.
Well, because at the end of the day, with employees and all the expenses, so and medical is trickier, different than, well, every business is different, right? It has its own little intricacies. But I use QuickBooks extensively in that world, and I loved QuickBooks. I love QuickBooks. But it always had to be transferred to an accountant who, kept up with the laws from the year, from, the laws changes all the time, the percentages. So I'm call myself a very good bookkeeper, and tracking our expenses. I've always used software, even for our personal. I think it's personally responsible to use to track your expenses so that you can see where, if you need to cut, if you want to stick to a budget, those kinds of things. Are we eating out or groceries? Where can we move numbers so that we can hit our goals? So an online software I've always used. So now I have switched to Quicken because I really believe it's more of a user-friendly for the average person. QuickBooks tends to be debits, credits, online, or an accounting software. So, and I know they have a lot of apps and that drive people towards the QuickBooks. But I've landed with Quicken mainly because of cost, and it's simpler. Now, accountants may want QuickBooks. So, but that's my expertise is the difference between them and just getting people personally responsible for their bookkeeping, period. Their incomes and their incoming money and outgoing money, that type of stuff.
Okay, so let's hold on. There's someone saying I asked, how do you do bookkeeping? And someone, Home and Garden Designs, Rachel at Hustling Goddess. I don't know if that's someone they use or if that's an account that is, I don't know. So if that's someone you use, tell us a little bit more information. If you are just, maybe it's someone that does not need to be here. We will see. Okay, so let's get into it. We did have a couple questions. I asked on my Instagram if anyone had specific questions. So I'll go over those questions first because I want to make sure those get asked. And then we'll just kind of get into our processes and what we do. And like Liz said, talking about all of the different softwares and how you use it. So what software, someone's asking, here we go. What software do you use? And can you tell us how you use it on a daily basis? So we will go kind of around and then I'll talk about what I do as well. So whoever wants to start, the software that you use, I'm going to take it back a notch first. I think we need to clarify bookkeeping and taxes because they are somewhat different. I mean, they go together, but they're not necessarily the same. I don't know if I can answer that or if someone else wants to kind of talk about those differences in bookkeeping versus, the taxes and a CPA.
Nicole, you want to do that one? You want to take that one?
So I use QuickBooks. For some of my streams of income, I use QuickBooks, and some of my streams of income, I use Excel. I'm very advanced in Excel, though. But I recommend QuickBooks if people want a software. There's a lot of different things that are coming out, and I'm trying them out before I recommend them. But there's a lot of different things that are coming out that are doing stuff for resellers. So I'm still checking them out and stuff. But a lot of people use QuickBooks. Some people use GoDaddy. It's basically whatever, works for you. Tax software, I recommend TurboTax if you're not hiring an accountant, because I feel like TurboTax is very easy and it's owned by the same people that has QuickBooks, so everything will just flow into there. So I recommend TurboTax if you're not hiring an accountant.
Yeah, so bookkeeping is kind of managing and tracking all of your expenses, everything that your business is doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever kind of basis. And then you feed that into your taxes because you have to pay taxes on your income, right? So that's kind of the difference. So like Nicole was saying, bookkeeping is kind of managing all of that. So, for your personal life, it's your bank account and you look what's coming in and what's going out. And most people, sometimes you can use a software to kind of see your expenses and kind of budget. And that's what like a QuickBooks or a Quicken or a Big Daddy is going to be, is to kind of track and manage your expenses, your money coming in and out. And then you need that information to feed into either TurboTax or give to Nicole, or I have a CPA who knows all the tax laws and knows what to write. I don't know, all kinds of things that I have no idea about. So that's just the difference. I just want people to understand you do need to be doing both.
Well, and clarify too, Sarah, what you offer is for analyzing inside of your business, not just tracking your income and your expenses, but your numbers then translate to, big, small, these brands, those brands. It's a totally different component, even though it's still numbers, it's still income, and it's even another layer of where numbers can be used.
Yes, and I think thanks for bringing that up. My product. I should have said that, but yes, that is, and the information. So in the sales and trends dashboard, or if you use Poshmark specific, because you have the sales reports in there, that can be one part of your business, your inventory, right? So that's something that you can use for bookkeeping and in your taxes. But there's so many other expenses in your business that you really need to be accounting for, so that you're not paying taxes on things that you shouldn't be. But yes, my dashboards are not meant to be, I am not an accountant. I am not a finance person. I look at statistics. I look at numbers to grow your business and to have metrics on how your business is performing. So like in the business world, they would be kind of like KPIs, right? Like how are things actually performing? That's different, like Liz said, than your day-to-day bookkeeping. My dashboards don't have expenses, so you're not going to put in, you'll have your cost of goods in there, but you won't put in like the poly mailers and all of this crap that's back here. Yeah, is not all of the things that it takes to your gas, your mileage, all of that stuff is not part of my dashboard. That's part of a finance analysis that you would do that I don't offer. And then also that would go into your taxes. So thank you, Liz, for bringing that up, because I do get a lot of people ask, hey, can I use this for my taxes? And I'm like, well, you can it has all of your inventory. And if you've been tracking it well, you can use that information. It will tell you how many items you've purchased, how many items, that's a lie. Unless you've uploaded everything that you have purchased, because I have inventory back here that's not in my spreadsheet yet, right? Because I purchased it, but I have not listed it yet. But it does have your inventory, right? That is one piece of the bookkeeping and the taxes. So great point, Liz. Thank you. So Nicole, you mentioned the softwares that you use. Liz, I don't know if you want to dig a bit deeper into kind of what you use and how are you using it on a daily or weekly, if you do it weekly basis? Like what does it entail? What are you doing?
Well, Quicken, QuickBooks, and I'm assuming most of the softwares, if you go up from there, are going to allow you to integrate with your checking accounts, your credit cards, wherever you spend money, they will sync with the software. So I do mine every couple of days, where I go on and I just push a button, and all the transactions that are in the bank or at the credit card will feed into my Quicken. I use Quicken because it's simpler, and I like QuickBooks too. But and then I literally go through and itemize those transactions and categorize them. So if I go to Goodwill and it shows up from my Bank of America, goes in, transaction shows up in my Quicken, I know Goodwill is an expense it's a cost of goods for reselling. So I have that categorized a certain way. Now, say I go in there and I buy some lawn furniture or something, whatever. I can literally break that transaction into two pieces and say, $30 was for, cost of goods, and say $10 was for something else, household stuff. So you can break those categories up. I like to do it at least weekly, otherwise it's hard to remember. But I literally go in and I just push a button. And so like today was the first.
The button, just to clarify, so the button that you're pushing is
software.
Right. But you're saying like, hey, this purchase is an expense. This purchase is a cost of goods. This purchase is a revenue. Well, not purchase, but this, debit or this. Yes. Debit is a revenue, right? So you're categorizing it in different places. So at the end of the day, you can use that for tax purposes, right?
Right. And so like income comes in. My husband, and well, I have it too. So if I get money from Poshmark, I get money from eBay, I get money from PayPal, which is ThreadUp, or, other places. But I also have 1099s coming from a couple of other things. So I do break those incomes up into separate categories. So it's not just one income. My husband has incomes, and I break that up as well, so that we can get an idea. Because for accounting purposes, they want to know a little bit more than, you guys made this much money this month. That was what was in. You want to tell them a little bit more about where it was coming from. So, and it depends on how anal you are, how much, like if you want to break up eBay and Poshmark and ThreadUp, you can do that. Otherwise, it's reselling income. It's just.
And then does it give you reports? So we're talking Quickens now. Does it give you reports? Because I'm analytical. I haven't jumped into, I'll talk what I do in a minute, but I haven't jumped into a software because I want to have the raw data so I can look at all the different things. And when I've looked at some of the things, it doesn't have enough reporting of things that I would want to look at. But what kind of reporting, like not necessarily for taxes, but for your own purposes, you can see like, you know, like here's the split out between Poshmark and eBay. If you do it, like what kind of reporting?
I do. I can break it up now. Quicken, I can get those reports out of Quicken. I believe QuickBooks is a little bit more manageable with really fine out reports. It's a little trickier with Quicken. But I run my husband's small business, and we have 1099 reps, like 5 or 6 of them. I can run all those people independently, generate reports for 1099s easily with Quicken. Took a little bit of manipulating, but it's once I had it, I have it. But I can break up all my income into the different places. But those are raw numbers too. I mean, they're bottom line numbers. You know, I can sell something for 25 on Poshmark. What I wind up getting in my checkbook is what, 17,890 right now. That's income because I did the shipping discount on top of the fees. So, you know, what goes in my income is 17 something versus, you know, average sale price was 25. So those 2 different places the number. So the $25 number is not going to be in my software anywhere.
Well, yeah. And so that's what I'm wondering too. And this is one reason that I'm hesitant to jump into a software is because how do you account for shipping and fees? Because most of, like when it goes into your bank account, that's already taken out, right? On Poshmark, it's already taken out. eBay now it's already taken out because I'm managing.
Well, it is. I do basic and I think for most people, money in, money out, as long as it's categorized for this component of my life. So my reselling income and my reselling expenses, that's what I give my accountant. As far as breaking down my inventory and, you know, whether I've got assets there, I don't get into that too much because because I don't want to track. I don't want to use QuickBooks for inventory. I think you'll go nuts if you try to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's totally unnecessary for the about 80% of resellers. I don't think going every shirt, every line item, I think it's crazy to try to use a software like that. We never used it. Here's the thing. My husband and I bought braces, knee braces, elbow braces, shoulder. I never used inventory. It was too tedious.
Yes. And I agree. And I didn't used to until my dashboard. And then I wanted to look at those metrics. Nicole, I'm interested in your perspective from an accountant perspective. Like my accountant wants to know the shipping and fees. And that's why, you know, like if I just do money in, money out, I'm sure you can, right, Liz? Like I'm not saying
you can.
Yeah, I'm just curious how, when you're doing something attached to your bank account, how you also give accountants or account for accountings for like your shipping and fees, because if it's money in, then that's typically most platforms has taken it out and then they deposit it into your account, right?
You'd have to put the total in and then put the eBay shipping and then put the bottom line. You'd have to categorize that each transaction by yourself.
Nicole, do you know of any? Well, first of all, do you have to have the shipping and fees? Is it okay to do it without, or how does that kind of work from a tax perspective?
So are you talking about eBay or just platforms in general?
Just platforms in general. So if you're putting, money gets deposited into your account, but most platforms are going to take their fees out. And then you would pay for shipping, you know, separately. Like Poshmark, it's a discount. They take it out of your eBay. You would pay for. No, eBay now with managed payments, they take it out of your pending as well. So your money in, it does not. If you're using QuickBooks or Quickens, there's no way to know what your shipping and fees are for the year.
Yeah, so I think now eBay managed payment is kind of a pain for me now because I actually get the report and then I have to put in like the order. You know, for like, I get like the monthly report and then I have to put in the order, put in how much the shipping was, because then they just show the payout amount. And then for the Poshmark sales report, I just get the report for the whole month and then put in the Poshmark sales, the Poshmark shipping discounts column, and then any upgraded shipping, and then like the Poshmark fee and the Poshmark sales. Like that's what I do. But yeah, it's because you want to deduct all those things. So you have to kind of know what those numbers are.
So when you say you want to deduct them, we're not all accountants, and I want to really like dig into this for people that are like super brand new, right? You're saying you want to deduct them. So what happened? Like, can you dig a little deeper? Like, what does deducting mean, and why? Like, if you're not accounting for your shipping and fees, what could be the potential fallout? Maybe like what would I mean, could you get in trouble, or are you just missing
You
out?
would have a bigger tax bill because you would owe more because your net profit would be more. So, your profit would be more. So it's to your benefit to know those numbers so you can deduct them for your taxes to go against the money you made.
That makes sense. So you use software, but then you go in at the end of the month, pull a report from the platforms, and then put that into, there's a place in Quicken. You use QuickBooks.
I don't
remember which one you said.
She uses Quicken, Liz.
Yeah, okay.
I use QuickBooks. Some people use GoDaddy. I see someone in the comments, the Dibs person. I don't use GoDaddy, so I have no idea what's happening in GoDaddy. But I use QuickBooks and Excel. But I find that this managed payment thing is a pain if you're using QuickBooks. Before, you could easily see like the shipping fee, the PayPal fee, and stuff like that before. But the managed payment thing, in my opinion, is a pain.
It's not easy to report. And I will agree I kind of agree. I agree in the sense of pulling out a report is not as easy as PayPal reports. However, I think the report, like looking in eBay, it's much easier to figure out what goes with what, right? Like in PayPal, it was like there was all these fees and shipping, and I didn't know what went with what. In PayPal, it's at least like, here is, and we're talking managed payments in eBay, but here is the order, here is the fee. It's all one line, it all goes together, but they don't yet have an easy report way to kind of figure that out. Okay, Melissa, how are you? What do you use? QuickBooks.
I use the QuickBooks Self-Employed to track my mileage, my receipts. It connects to my bank account so I can itemize and categorize my expenses. But I also use an Excel spreadsheet that tracks all my inventory line item by line item because I want to know how much I paid for it, how much I paid for each, like shipping, all my shipping supplies, all of that goes into the cost. And then I also want to know how much, when I sold it, how much I paid for shipping, all the things. So I can deduct as much as possible, but then I have a really clear picture of what my cash flow is doing. So I know exactly how much I'm spending, how much I'm making, and I have all that raw data in front of me. So I know the true health of my business. And I do this once a week. So it allows me to pivot if something's not working out. And it helped me to see that, I think like last year, the first couple months I was spending exorbitant amounts offering shipping discounts, but then I was able to bring that down a significant amount after a few months. So I think for me, I love, even though it's a hassle doing that, I think that's what I do for my business.
Yeah. And you can see why I know all these people and I've invited them on their channel. They all speak my language. I'm very much like Melissa. If you're new to this channel, look at your numbers. That's what this channel is about. I teach you how to look at your numbers. But to Melissa's point, if you aren't looking at these numbers, you're offering these, things may be working, but are you actually making money at it, right? And that's what my dashboards do, is tell you those metrics, but that's different than what Melissa was talking about in your cash flow. So what I do, and I'm going to get to the comments in a minute, because we do have a couple questions and people telling us what they do, but what I do, I have my dashboard, a sales and trends dashboard that gets updated daily with all of my inventory. When something gets listed, it gets updated daily. Full disclosure, I have a VA, so I don't do it. A VA lists for me, and they update it when they list. So they put the information in there, how much I paid for it, what it was listed at, where I bought it from, all of that. And then when something sells and I ship it, that information goes in there as well. So everything that's listed and sold for the year, I have inventory, shipping and fees is in there as well. So I use that part for my inventory numbers, shipping and fees for taxes. And then to Melissa's point too, I do that just for my inventory, see how my business is going, am I buying the right things, what platforms are working, all of that. But as far as finances, expenses as well, I use a spreadsheet. I'm pretty expert level, and my husband's definitely expert level. He does dashboards, Excel for finance for his full-time job. So he has added to my spreadsheet. If you guys follow my Instagram, I often post like this massive craziness, multiple tabs and analytics. And but that is what I use to go in and say, hey, here's every single thing that I've done in my business. And then it can kind of give you your cash flow, and then also itemize it in. This is a marketing expense. This is an inventory. This is a revenue. This is, and then that is used to give numbers to my CPA. The finance part I do once a week because I'm not big enough to have to do it daily, right? Like I have maybe a couple things I'm spending money on a weekly basis. And I'm not like eBay, I only get paid once a week, Poshmark. I don't have enough transactions to do it weekly. I do it weekly though, just to stay ahead and manage and keep it, because if I wait too long, then it seems to be this big task and it's harder to figure out, when something doesn't tie out, it's much harder to figure out where that's coming from. But then also to Melissa's point too, it helps me keep an eye on, do I have money? Last week I posted on my Instagram, hey, there's this really good palette. Should I buy it? Blah, 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 blah. Before I posted that on Instagram, I was looking at the spreadsheet with my husband, looking at the money and saying, is this a good choice? Because it was updated. I knew where my money was for the time period. So that's kind of what I do. Let me jump into the comments. Duncan has a question. I'm going to come back to that because I want to jump into what people are saying in the comments. Using Google Spreadsheets and I save my receipts. I think when you're just reselling too, especially just on one platform, there's not a ton going on. The more that I am on multiple platforms, and then now I have YouTube and I have affiliates, and that's where it's starting to get really complex and harder for me to track and manage. Someone's saying GoDaddy is $10. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe GoDaddy is only for YouTube or eBay. I don't think it interfaces with Poshmark. Correct me if I'm wrong. When I looked into it a couple years ago, that was the case.
Interface, you mean by actually integrating the data dumps?
Yes, right. Yeah. So GoDaddy, like how Quickens you can like connect to your bank account, GoDaddy you can connect, I believe, to eBay. And then PayPal before managed payment, although some people are still on PayPal. But it kind of all talks to, it was meant to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't used this. This is from the research I did a couple years ago. But it all kind of talks, but only to eBay, not to other places. Okay, this is interesting. So Duncan he knows his eBay. He's definitely helped me. If you guys want help on eBay, he has a user group. Duncan, feel free to put that in the chat. He knows his stuff. So Sarah, not all the eBay fees are taken out of managed payments.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, right. I know I pull a different report at the end of the year. That's not in managed payments. eBay has like 17 reports, and it took me and my husband about 5 hours and a zillion calls to eBay to get a report that tied out to the 1099 they sent us.
And you never
5 hours. Yeah, it felt like it because my husband, I was like, this is what they told us. It's fine. And he's like, no, you have to tie these numbers out. And it was hard to find the report that ties out. Yes, eBay does it for you with GoDaddy. It's all done for you. So if you're only on eBay, I think GoDaddy is definitely the way to go. Oh, see you later, Liz. The trouble is I don't trust managed payments. They're getting fees wrong and overcharging many sellers. That's a conversation for a different day. eBay's supposed to charge is supposed to be 8.5% and have been charging many sellers 12.35% and also charging extra on UPS shipping in many cases. So check your eBay managed payments, but we aren't getting into that now. Someone did have a question. Do feel free to ask questions if you guys have as we go along. I have lots of questions to keep us going, and we're already halfway through. So what's the best way to invest your profits? I don't know if this is, well, you guys can answer this if you have any thoughts on it. The stock market or a bank?
So I like the stock market. Oh, were you going to call? Were you going to say something?
Oh, no.
I agree with Nicole, the stock market for sure.
Yeah, so I
bank.
I love the stock market if you know what you're doing, right? So I've had a lot of experience where like I had to create 10Ks before in my life. And then I've also been like the accountant creating the letter that's in the 10K. So I can kind of read the reports and see if the accountant is like trying to say that this is a sinking ship or not. But they're like trying to give them a good opinion on the report. And then I kind of know how to read financial statements, and then I go by my gut. But I actually have a really high like return on my stocks. But I think it's because I understand. But I feel like if you don't understand, like, don't invest in stuff you don't understand.
Yeah.
And if you understand it, it's great. And if you have a good social media presence, like I don't even have a big social media. I only have 9,000, and I get free stock all the time. So you can even get free ones and like try out companies, if you have like some sort of Instagram following. But I think it's better. And I use a lot of high yield bank accounts, but for savings, but I feel like the most money in my returns is from like the stock market, in my personal opinion.
Do you have suggestions? Because we're not all accountants that know how to read 10Ks. I mean, I worked in corporate America long enough to know what it is and kind of have a decent idea. But for those who are like, I have no idea, like, would you have any suggestions on a good place to kind of start? Is there like a stock markets for dummies something somewhere?
I kind of learned it because I had to create 10Ks and I've had to like audit 10Ks and like, create the letter that, there's a letter in 10Ks that says like the independent auditors report. So I've had to like make those and things like that.
Yeah.
But you can go on like the investor relations section of like publicly traded companies and download like for free, like their 10Ks and things like that. And there's also like an Edgar website as well. But I feel like I just learned it like from work. But I'm sure there's probably people that have like courses and things that are on there. I think it's just like understanding, like, does the company have cash flow? That's a really important thing. Like, and are they opening up new things like that? I think that's really important as well. Like, if the company has like a lot of like bad press, or if they have like new things coming out, that might be good. Things like that. Like right now, like I kind of like put it together, right? So like Zoom, right? It shot up to the pandemic. Everybody's on Zoom, right? So the people that jumped on that train, they did really well, because they got the, shot up from Zoom and stuff like that. And like Netflix, like everyone's at home. Like you got to think like logically about things. Like what are people doing right now, because of the pandemic. But then like when the pandemic is over, then it might shoot back down. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
yeah.
That's so kind of how
yeah, I mean, keeping an eye on what's happening outside, politics play into it as well. The stock market is still crazy because of the pandemic, but, right around the election and all the drama. It was trauma. I'm going to say it was trauma around the election. The stock market, it just freaks out in uncertain times as well. Melissa, you are not an accountant, and you said the stock market as well. How did you learn, or do you have any suggestions on how to kind of get started?
Well, personally, I would advocate for finding a professional to do that for you, because if you try to do it yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. But do you want to get there faster or slower? And do you have the time to invest in figuring all that stuff out yourself? So if you want to just get on the train and get to where you want to go faster, hire a professional who can do that for you. If you want to take the scenic route, do it yourself.
Yeah, so I like that.
Professional to do mine.
Yeah, I agree with
the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean these people went to college, have been doing, like, there's so much to know about it, and it's scary. You can lose a lot of money if you don't. There's not a right way. It's very risky. There's risk depending on what you're doing, low risk to high risk.
And most of the retirement funds or retirement accounts, when you put your money in your retirement, they're invested in funds in groups, and you can pick the type of group you want to do. I think for resellers, if they want to invest, it's basically putting it into a retirement account and having the money grow inside of that retirement account, and then the money's spread out in different groups that have already been predetermined to work, right? I think that's, especially unless you want to go learn how to do the stock market. I think it's all job.
No, and that's a valid point too, because as a reseller or entrepreneur in general, you don't get that. You don't get insurance. Mm-hmm. You don't get retirement. You don't get, so trying to find a way. We have retirement set up, and it's very low risk because you want to make sure that you have that money when you're done. And if it grows slow, like, we're not going to retire for a long time, right? I'm going to say that I'm currently investing. What was the question? I don't know if investing is the right word, but where you're investing your profits, I'm investing in my business. I'm growing my business. If you guys have followed my channel, I did a video at the end of the year there was my gross was really growing, but I looked at a picture of what's, happening behind it, my expenses, my inventory. I reinvested most of my profits, back into my business that allowed me to grow. And eventually in the long run, it'll pay off. But there was months that I took little to no profit because I put it back into my business. So that's kind of what I mean, we have retirement funds and we have other things as well. But as far as I'm also investing in my children because it pays for their swim lessons, which children are the future. I haven't gotten to the point where, my husband's income, we do, investing and stuff is that, but I'm really trying to grow my business, and all of that money that I have extra profits is going back into my business. So Duncan is saying, agree with the stock market is much better than having all of your money in the bank account. We do have a couple questions, but I want to get to the other question. And I think someone here has a similar type question. On Instagram. At what point do sales need to be reported? Nicole, I can answer this too, but go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, so it's based off of the standard deduction, but I feel like, and I get a lot of DMs about this, and some people, I feel like they don't know this, but like some people, if they actually claimed like their money, they would get money back. Like a lot of the people that DM me, like they would get money back, and you can't claim a loss for more than 3 years. But like you might get your money, you might get like a refund, if you do it. And if you have a full-time job, you have to do your taxes anyways. As long as you're not, $1,000 at your full-time job. But, most people are making more than that. Most people, so you're gonna have to do your taxes anyways. And then when you might get a refund. Like if you're doing bad your first year, you're gonna get a refund. You got lost. And I'm saying it's like beneficial to do that, but like after 3 years of a loss, they consider it a hobby. The IRS, and they don't, they don't anymore. But if you're doing bad, like your first year, like you're gonna get money back because you have a loss. So it makes sense to do that. So, but I think people don't realize that.
Yeah. So you said this was interesting. You said after 3 years, it's a loss, and they consider it a hobby. Once that happens, you still have to you have to claim all of your income. Whether they're going to give you money back or not is kind of what you're referring to, right? Like at the point, anytime that you have money coming in, the IRS wants a portion of it, essentially.
Like certain types of income is not taxable, like child support, and like certain things are not taxable. But like some people, I feel like they don't realize like they would get an actual refund, like it would be to their benefit. And people can like run numbers in TurboTax, before you have to pay, like and see like what would happen. And there's a lot of different tax softwares, and I try a whole bunch of them to like see and stuff. But I feel like TurboTax will explain things to the max. And also you can call and people will like explain stuff for you for free. Whereas the other software is like very bare bones because it's free. And like if you have someone helping you with your tax return, that's great, right? But if you don't know nothing and you use one of those free ones, then it's not gonna say, like on TurboTax, it'll say like, do you have independence? Then it'll do like a refund maximizer. Like it'll actually have a million questions to make sure that you're doing things right. Whereas the free tax USA, I love free tax USA if you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're doing, TurboTax is better. You can call them on the phone, you can chat with them, things like that. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I'm a fan of just paying someone else to do it because it changes every year. And I don't know. The amount of time that it takes me to figure out how to do it in TurboTax, it's not, it costs me a couple $100 for CPA to do it. And it takes me an entire day in TurboTax. And I still, like the first year that we used this PA, and this was it was when I was doing upsell. So it wasn't to the level that my reselling is. So a little bit of a side business. We did it in TurboTax, and then we also had the accountant do it. And he made us back his fee plus some because he knew what he was doing. And we spent all day in TurboTax. So we lost an entire day and essentially lost money because he knew the questions asked and he knew how to use this and how to do that and the new rules and what, like, I'm a huge proponent of paying someone else who knows that. And on that note, Nicole is a tax. I'm not here to promote her, but I'm going to promote her because she does this and she's a I'm just saying, like, that's not the purpose of this channel. I'm not, but she is an accountant. And you can ask questions, and she does have a course as well. But the taxes change every year too, right? Like there's new laws and new rules, and but essentially you have to claim income.
Yeah, and it's usually to people's benefit unless they're, doing really well. Their net profit is like soaring. But I feel like the
once
people
you do it,
worry are the
once
people
you're
that
doing really well, the IRS is going to know, and if you don't, then you're in trouble.
Well, and there's two sides too. Like if you want to buy a house or you want to buy a car,
Mhm.
everyone talks about hiding their income so they don't have to pay taxes on it and all this stuff, which then you don't take advantage of the expenses, which is what I think Nicole's alluding to, is like, you could make money back, or you could take because of the expenses that you now get to claim with that income. But it's also going to hurt you on the other side of life. If you want to go buy a house and you've been doing this for 3 years and you've got 20 grand a year coming in and you're trying to hide all that, your eligibility for a house is going to change, or a car, or interest rates, accessing all that's going to change. I'm a proponent of, I'd rather not lie about anything, because then I don't have to remember what I said to anybody. Just here's the truth. And an accountant, we still have a CPA, and we have a pretty basic system set up right now compared to the way it used to be. But I still, like this year, I think that you can write off. Well, most of us spend a lot of time in our homes. There's write-offs in that component. In the space in your house, you get us percentages of this to percentages of that, which I don't want to have to know the percentages. That's what my CPA is for.
Right.
And
know that, like, he was asking our CPA, he sends out like a big packet, and there were like COVID type questions in there, like, did this
Yes.
something, did that, so I'm sure there's like, I'm sure Nicole probably knows, but there's like things around that I'm not going to follow it, and I don't know. So Anne is saying, how come you find a qualified accountant for the state you are in and know that they can help you with your reselling business first filing attempts? You hire Nicole.
Or you can just ask questions, or see, like, you can go to Poshmark and see who those people are using. Like in your local, if you want someone local, you can just go to local Poshmark. Like you can do the virtual Poshmark now and like say, well, who do you use? And then see who they use if you want someone local.
Well, is the federal tax and the state tax, like, once you determine your numbers in the federal world, doesn't it translate, or is every tax or every state have different allowances? Maybe the federal doesn't do, or is that maybe
the different states? There's different rules. So like in Florida, the tax system is completely different. I actually want to move to Florida just because I like the tax laws there.
So well, that's why people retire. That's part of why people retire there, right?
Yeah. Like that's why all the rich people want to go to Texas. Want to go to Florida. They have good estate rules. They have good like income tax rules. Because some states like Tennessee, like I was dealing with somebody in Tennessee today, and like they don't have to file a state return.
We don't either. Nevada doesn't have any state sales tax.
And so you might get someone that is not familiar with your particular state. So sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, as long as they're familiar with your particular state. But
yeah, I mean, reselling specific, I think definitely ask. I got mine from my brother-in-law, who's also a reseller, but going to Posh and Sips. Melissa, do you have suggestions on how did you find your?
I did my taxes last year. This year, I'm going to an accountant that I've worked with before, because I'm filing an LLC on top of reselling, on top of selling a house, buying a new house in a different state. So all the things I need a professional this year. So, Instagram, though, is a great way to find different accountants. I've seen a whole bunch. I've seen Nicole on there. I've seen Not Your Dad's CPA. He does reselling things Instagram's another great resource. So you can literally DM a reseller on Instagram and ask them for a recommendation. So.
Next question. How do I know what to write off? I need someone to hold my hand. Track everything. I don't know what you can write off, but track everything. Like if it's just remotely close to, your mileage, and they will tell you, or like your house and your water, for us, I'm in Colorado. So I don't know how it is other places, but there's like certain percentages. I'm working out of my home, so we can take a percentage of electricity and I say this on my channel, but I really mean it, like track your numbers, because it's going to help you. It's if you can write off all of these things and you are diligent about that, it is going to help you. But Nicole or others can probably speak to it a little bit more than my little lecture. Tracking everything.
I liked what you said, because you have to know your numbers. Like your accountant can't imagine what your numbers are. Like you have to like tell them what, how much you spent, with this, unless you give them like your documents. Like you got to know, what your numbers are or where they are, so they can, track it and stuff and decide what's deductible for you. But I definitely agree with you. I'm about that.
Anyone else have opinions on that?
I'm just on it. If I bought poly mailers and I bought, tape, whatever I bought, now the mileage, I just give my accountant my beginning of the year number and my end of the year number. And I kind of just 60-70% of my driving is business, or business related. And he'll give me percentages from that. And he asks questions. So the CPA, I think, is valuable, even with the software, because they're going to know how to, like you said, ask questions, make you think differently. And then they take your answers and put them into the tax laws. I think that's the best.
And the nice thing too about a CPA, and I mean, I don't have an affiliate for one or anything, so I'm not like promoting them. But if you have a CPA, most of them don't charge you for questions throughout the year. If you're like sending them like an hour-long research project, then yes, they'll charge you for their time. But as things happen, like, over the course of last year, I was like, oh, I started doing pallets now. How do I need to do that? Or now I'm an affiliate. How do I need to? And he'll write me back an email and he'll tell me, and you don't get that with the tax software, right? You're just kind of, maybe at the end of the year, they'll ask you questions, but it's 100% worth the money. And
you sleep at night.
Yes. And you don't spend a whole day doing it. Yes. And then you know what you're doing the entire year. How do I bookkeep? How do I manage it? Mm-hmm. And I ask questions ahead, like, is it better for me to donate my stuff or take it to the buy sell trade from a tax perspective, right? Where, no one else would tell me. He tells me from a tax perspective. I don't always follow it because taxes isn't the only reason to make a decision. But being able to have an expert at your disposal, most of them don't charge an extra fee if you're asking questions here and there. Someone mentioned your bank accounts, and I do want to talk a little bit about this, having your own bank account versus having it all together. I can guess what you're going to say, but at what point do you get your own bank account? I'm going to say it that way because I know you guys all well enough. At what point do you decide to get your own bank account when you're doing this?
Well, I think you should get your own bank account right away. If you want a business, you need to get a business bank account first off. But when you go for a business bank account, they're going to ask you for some documents, so like your LLC documents, your sole proprietor documents. I'm actually testing out. So I was using Aslo, but they shut down as of March 31st. So now I'm using a new one. March 12th will be 30 days, and I'm going to announce on my Instagram, like after I use them for 30 days, to make sure they're actually good. But they have like graphs and like trends, and it like says categories of your expenses, and it's like very fancy. So I'm just going to check them out, like, for 30 days and make sure they're not nuts. And then I'm going to put them on my Instagram to, have other people check it out. But Aslo was really great. It was like free, not like.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
Oh, it's closed down now. It's closed down as of March 31st. But I'm going to announce a new one. My Instagram, I'm only using it for 30 days, March 12th, just to make sure it's not going to go crazy on me. But
you're not recommending.
Yeah, they do cash back, like all kind of stuff. But I like to use that for 30 days to probably like recommend it first. But this is the new one I'm trying. It's free. They don't charge for extra stuff if they like. And they do cash back. So, when you swipe your card and stuff like that. So, and they have like all these fancy graphs. You probably would love it, Sarah.
It sounds right. We have Chase, and I just got a Chase bank account because the interfaces are personal, and so I can just pay myself. I mean, I did no research. I was like, this is what we have for our personal. Although my husband did extensive research when we chose to go with Chase, so I figured that was good enough. So follow Nicole on Instagram, March 12th. Hopefully, she's going to announce this new one that she really likes. Melissa or Liz, do you have any other? I mean, when do you?
Because of the software, I don't need to have a separate account. But I also, when I had eBay feeding into my PayPal, I liked having it. If there's no money in your PayPal account, I use the card, the credit, the ATM, like their debit card. I liked that because it kept it cleaner. But I don't want to pay for a checking account. That's my thing. A lot of checking accounts can charge you $25-$30 a month just to have the account and let you keep a minimum. I'm just trying to avoid those fees. So because of my software, I don't have to have a separate account. But I've been doing this a long time too. For some people, it's better for them to have a separate account because it keeps them cleaner and it's simpler, to be on top of what your numbers are. So if you can find a free one and still access your money fast, that's the thing. If you need to be able to transfer money from an online bank into your Bank of America or something, it might take 2 days, 3 days, that kind of thing. I like It's just simpler for me to keep it in one place. I like to complicate things, so I've made myself make it simpler. So,
Melissa?
Absolutely, I would advocate for a separate banking account, especially if you're going to start filing LLCs and all that. It's a great way for, I mean, I've got a whole system set up and I've got some Instagram posts on it about what I do, but I absolutely have a separate bank account for all that. As far as I agree with Liz, though, you should not have to pay for checking. So I found a credit union that offers free checking accounts, and I just use that, and I would never pay for checking. So,
right.
Some banks, though, if you have a military background, you can get it for free. So
Chase does that.
Chase offers free checking if the primary name on the account is a veteran.
A veteran, right.
But anyway, yeah, I do a separate bank account, and I did that from the start.
I was going to say, the other reason I think ours ended up being free because it's a separate account and you can tie it to the other. Like if you had multiple accounts, then it was like free. I don't know, but I'm not paying for one either. I think having it from the beginning is a good idea. I did not have it from the beginning. So I'm not going to pretend like I did. Actually, this time last year, we had this conversation and y'all convinced me I need to get my shit together. Oh, I probably can't say that on my YouTube. Just for editing reasons, I can't edit a live out and then you get anyway. But y'all convinced me I needed to get it together. I was hesitant to do it because when it was in my personal, my husband did all of our finances because he does all the personal finances and all of the money was coming in and out. So he had to do that weekly, Excel spreadsheet. And so I was hesitant because I didn't want to have to take it over. Once it wasn't in our personal, I had to start doing it. That's the entire reason, not a valid reason at all. So after this conversation, I took it over. I got a business account and it's easy. You go in and you sign up for it. It is significantly easier because it is everything's in there. Like that's all my business. I don't have to figure out when we were doing it in my personal, me and my husband spend probably an hour a week deciding, you didn't account for this, Sarah. Was this actually business or was this, and it would usually end up in a fight. So I don't want to see a fight. We don't really, it would end up in heated words. And then he'd tell me that I need to do it on my own. And then the next week I wouldn't. So it's best for our marriage as well to have your own separate account as well. We are getting down to the 1 hour. So if you guys do have any last minute questions, please do make sure to ask them. All of their information their links are in the description. So you can send them DMs as well. Last year was my first year reselling. I have 2 questions. Do I need to claim taxes if I made less than $3,000 and live in California? If so, I also work a full-time job. So will I be able to use TurboTax?
Yeah, you should use TurboTax. I think we talked about this one earlier, but you can use TurboTax. And because you have a full-time job, you're going to need to file your taxes anyway. And you might get a refund since you made like a little amount. So I would try it out. But you're not like required if it's under the standard deduction, but you might get a refund. So it might make sense.
Because you can write off all your house. You can write off expenses because of the business income. You can write off expenses against it that you typically can't because you have a W-2, type of job.
I did have one last question if no one has. So eBay sends you a 1099 if you made over 20K or I don't remember if it's or 200 transactions. I think you have to have both. PayPal does the same. Poshmark sends you nothing. They just give you a Poshmark sales report. But I'd like some clarification around if you don't get a 1099. Why do they send it? Yes, you still. I was trying to word it because we talked about that. You still have to report it, but why is that the cap out? Like, why are they sending a report? I don't know if anyone knows this, but it's always confusing to me because then I think it leads people to believe they don't have to claim it if they don't get a 1099. Why did they put that cap and only send it to some people and not other people? Does that make sense?
No? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the 1099 is from the business perspective. From when I own my business, I would issue 1099s. It was my way of declaring to the IRS that these were people I paid money to, and I was then releasing the responsibility of taxes on that money to the vendor, so and there was a debate for a while there. 600 and up is what I had to do a 1099 on. And then vendors, it was some of that was changing at some point. But I think on the other end of it, my account, let's say you got to account for the money into your account as a citizen or whatever you want to call it. Money going into my checking account. Now, $3,000, that could be you sold furniture this year or a garage sale. Garage sale money, you don't necessarily need to do a tax return for, but I think it's just, I didn't report my income for the first 3 or 4 years from Poshmark because it wasn't significant. It wasn't big chunks. It was little this or little that. But the last 3 years, it's been enough to where I don't want the IRS to go, where's that 10 grand come from this year? Where did that extra money come from, and trigger something. I've been audited twice in our business because it was just standard for the medical world. And it's not fun.
So a 1090, I mean, just to make sure, the 1099 is basically saying, hey, I'm letting the IRS know I paid them $20,000. Go, make sure that they do it. So anyone under $20,000, then that makes sense why people are like, oh, I don't have to claim it if it's under, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which just
is kind from eBay's perspective as a business, their responsibility to issue those is between them and the IRS.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Melissa.
Well, I would just like to hear Nicole's perspective, because the way I understood it is that there was a law passed that, am I wrong about this? There some kind aren't major like eBay's legally required to do that, right? Do 1099s for people who make a certain amount or do so many sales.
That's their agreement with the IRS, but Shopify and can you think about Shopify is a huge operation as well. And then Poshmark's a big operation. I feel like eBay and PayPal, a lot of people were not claiming things, and so that's their agreement with the IRS that they're doing that, because anytime you get a 1099, a W-2, all those are being sent to the IRS so they know if they're doing it correctly. This year there was this one new employer that did not send the W-2 to the IRS, which was a complete nightmare. But anyways, most people know they're supposed to send W-2s and 1099s, things like that. And eBay and PayPal definitely know that to the IRS. So anytime you get those, you get your interest or your dividends or your stock ones, they already sent it to the IRS. So if you don't send in yours, then they're going to audit you. Because that's what happened this year for 2020. One employer did not send in a W-2, and then they gave the employee the W-2. And then they went and entered it in, but then they didn't send it in, the employer, and then the person got audited. So that is something to remember. If you get those documents, the IRS also has a copy of it, so you might as well do it. And a lot of people, I feel, in my personal opinion, that don't want to file taxes, most of those people are going to get refunds, if they file. Because I feel the people that are not making the most are the most scared, in my opinion, to file, and they're going to get refunds, so they might as well do it. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think a lot of it goes around education too, right? Just not understanding how it all works. And this is a whole different discussion for a whole different day. Yeah. But I mean, I totally see your point on it. It's not, one, we pay taxes to live in the country that we live in, right? Those taxes go to our schools and our roads and our, if we want nice things in the country that we live in, we have to pay for them. And so skirting around that. I'm also a rural follower, as Liz is, if you can't tell by that comment. But also, you will get money back. If you're usually on the lower end of the spectrum, you have write-offs, you have childcare, you have, all of these things. They're not just out. The higher up you are, depending on all the laws and stuff, but the higher up you are, you're paying more, right? They're taking more from those people. So you do get refunds. And depending on how you do it, too, we try to break even because we would prefer to keep our money than send it to the IRS and then have them give us a refund. So we actually like when we don't get a refund. But that's also a conversation for when we have more than 1 minute. We have one more question, but you were going to say something, Nicole, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I just want to talk about it very brief, but depending on you have to have the right tax structure, right? Because some people need to be an escort to save, on their taxes, if they're making more money. But I feel a lot of people and even some accountants may not know even what an S corp is. You know what I'm saying? So I feel if you're making a good amount of money, you want to get an S corp, and then there's a whole bunch of different tax structures, and then it varies based on your state. I see this lady here. So you have a job. So to me, the person is supposed to be able to do both, but I'm assuming that person would just might not know about reselling, so they're referring you to someone else because they should know how to do both. Like it's not, it should not be two different people. That doesn't even make sense to me. So I don't know why they did that, unless they just don't understand. But then, like, you have to file it like on the same tax return, unless you have an S corp or a corporation, like because that's a different tax return. So it's the same tax return. So I don't know why there'd be like two people doing it.
And I feel like you'd want. I mean, you could probably speak to it a little bit more, but just in my experience, you'd want it all together because when you do it all together, there's certain ways that you can do things to make it better. That was very technical.
LLCs, even if you do a tax return for your LLC, it flows right into your personal taxes.
Exactly.
The LLC flows right into your personal taxes. So if you're doing it, I mean, we had an S corp, C corp, and prior to that an LLC, but we have an LLC now, and it flows right into our personal taxes. It's just it's just a Schedule C attachment, but.
And if you don't have any of those things, it should be with your personal taxes too, right?
Yeah. It's sole proprietorship. It's just part of your personal taxes. It's just a separate line item. My husband has a 1099 and a ton of them, and then he's also works for the Veteran Administration Hospital, so he gets W-2s and 1099s. We do one tax return.
Yeah, and that's really, we all do one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really strange that she's having two people. Like that sounds really strange to me.
Yeah. I do. If you guys have a few minutes, because you brought up a point that I want to touch on. If you have a few minutes to stay after it's been after an hour.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, you just mentioned an LLC, an S corp, and if you have, I mean, I don't want to make this another hour-long conversation, but just quickly overview of like why you would even want an LLC, or when you would go to an S corp, or kind of the difference in all of them.
So like the LLC, like you get that to protect your personal assets. So there's something I was going to mention, but I guess I'll mention it now. So you need your business bank account because there's a thing called piercing the veil, right? So if you have personal expenses and business account and you want to sue you, they got your personal assets. So that's why you want to have a business account, right? And then S corp prevents you from having to pay the 15.3% self-employment tax because your net profit is going to go against that 15%. And like, say you try to do 401k contributions, that only goes against your federal income tax amount. So you need an S corp, like if you're making like bank, and you don't want to pay that 15.3%. And then a C corp
what's considered bank? Because that's a different number for everybody.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like people have all kinds of numbers that I have different interpretations. Everybody does too. It's your tolerance levels. So like your net profit, like whatever that number is, times 15.3%. If you're okay paying that in taxes every year instead of just having an S corp, then that's like your tolerance levels. If you want to save money, get an S corp, right? So, but some people like if you get an S corp, then you gotta pay somebody to do your bookkeeping. If you don't know how to do your bookkeeping, then you gotta have payroll. Have a payroll service. Right. And some people don't want to do all that, and then you gotta have.
Well, and then how much are you saving if you're paying for these additional services, right? Which is where like the money comes into it, right?
Yeah.
If you're
the wrong numbers.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Because we got an
S corp. We got an S corp when we got more than 4 or 5 employees. My accountant pushed us into an S corp because we had to pay the money monthly. The payroll taxes went in monthly because we pulled out their share, and then we had to pay it for us. We had to pay all that monthly, and all the self-employment tax just transitioned into different. You just paid it monthly. So
that's big because I mean, bank for resellers. I just wanted a better idea of like most resellers don't have 5 employees, right? I mean, maybe
the different columns. Yeah, right. And it's pay. I mean, I had to have payroll services every month. My payroll had to be written up, and a document that said I pay on this day and this date. And I had vacation time, all that stuff. So, and QuickBooks did it for us. But payroll service for QuickBooks is another $400 a year or something like that. It's extra,
right? Which is why you have to run the numbers. Like I don't use that. Yeah, and then a C corp. So we did LLC, and then we did S corp, and then Nicole. You guys wrote that.
C corp is a whole other.
Yeah, like most people are not doing C corps unless they like making millions dollars. Like most people are not doing no C corps. So I feel like LLC or S corp or sole proprietorship. But there are cheap payroll services, and people can DM me if they want some suggestions. I do not do payroll for nobody because I don't have no time for that. But there are a lot of cheap payroll services, and they follow all the rules, things like that, for entrepreneurs and stuff. But you gotta, think about all those costs, because to do your taxes is gonna now become more expensive. You're not gonna do TurboTax anymore. You're gonna want to definitely hire somebody, because you're gonna have a corporate tax return in addition to your personal.
And then you're gonna have a separate tax return for that corporation. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Well, most resellers are going to fall under an LLC or nothing. So I know Melissa's an LLC now. I'm an LLC. I can tell you why I chose to do it. I don't know, Melissa, if you want to, because you've just recently done it. I don't know that every reseller really needs to do it, because you're under the umbrella, like it's your liability under the umbrella of the platforms that you sell on for the most part. But I don't know, Melissa, you recently are doing an LLC. What kind of made you go down that route?
So actually I have a sole proprietorship for reselling, and my coaching business is an LLC. So they're two separate entities. So mainly because I already had an EIN number for my reselling, and I wanted to get a separate EIN number and do an LLC, because the coaching I felt like I wanted to protect my assets. Reselling is very low risk. Coaching is a different animal, and I wanted to protect my personal assets. So I wanted to do an LLC for coaching and get a separate EIN and keep reselling separate. So
Chrissy's asking, and you can probably go into this because you're talking, sole proprietorship didn't come up. So you're talking, you have a sole proprietor for your reselling specifically. So why that instead of an LLC or nothing at all?
Well, really it was at the time filing a sole proprietorship, because at the time I was living in Colorado, it was easier. And I actually, the first year I didn't claim taxes either, which I don't recommend, but basically in the eyes of the government, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, anytime you're making money, even if it's on the side, it is technically a sole proprietorship. So once I started making more money and I decided, okay, I should file taxes, it's a sole proprietorship. I didn't make any intention otherwise. So it kind of just fell naturally that way.
That makes sense. And so an LLC, just to clarify a little bit, and then we'll jump off, an LLC and some of these other things, but when you are a reseller and you're selling strictly Poshmark, eBay, they're taking on the majority of the liability. If something happens, they're coming after eBay. eBay protects you, like to a certain extent. Like a seller is not going to come after your house because you sent them a fake bag, right? And so that's kind of what Melissa was alluding to, with it being very low risk and being okay as a reseller, being a sole proprietorship, going into coaching. And then I as well, I have my dashboards, I do coaching, I do courses. That's on me, right? If someone was like, oh my God, you did this to me, blah, 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 that comes on me. And so if you have an LLC, they can only come after your business. They cannot come after your personal, which to Nicole's point as well, that's why you need a business account. If it's linked together and they come after you, your personal is part of your business now, right? Nicole, I feel like you told me that.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to make sure and clarify, just to break it down for people who we threw a lot of words out there. But feel free to watch this over again, save it. I try and do this every year. So I did this last year as well. Things change, updated. So I do try and do this every year right around this time. But feel free to ask any one of these people, and myself included, any questions that you have. We will try to answer to the best of our ability. Nicole is the tax person, though, is the accountant. The rest of us just have owned small businesses, and telling you from our experience. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with all of us. If you guys like content like this, and then this is my live every single Monday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard. Oftentimes I have a specific content like tonight, and then sometimes it's just resellers come on and we chat, and topics come up, and like a weekly staff meeting. So if you do want to come on, just send me a DM, and I will get you set up for a time. It is open to anyone who would like to come on. Reselling, I'm doing reselling right now. I might go into entrepreneurship later this year. And then the rest of my videos are on reselling tips and tricks, data-driven strategies, using your numbers, how to use your numbers, to make the money that you want to make. Strategies that work for everyone, because if you use your numbers, you can be a side hustle to a full-time seller. Knowing your numbers will get you to where you want to go to spend your time wisely and efficiently. So make sure to subscribe. YouTube has changed their algorithm. So if you want to see videos that are popping up on your favorite YouTubers, you do need to hit that notifications. They're not necessarily coming into your feed unless you are specifically hitting the bell on the notifications. So make sure to do that on my videos if you want, but all of your other YouTubers that you like as well. Like, comment. If you guys have questions, you can leave them down below or reach out to me or anyone else. That's my spiel. If you guys have, Melissa, Liz, or Nicole, anything you guys want to say before we end?
Thank you just for having us, and nice to meet everybody too.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. So.
Melissa is also a business coach too. So she would be a great person if you're trying to start a business and get things going as well. Her information is down below. So thank you guys. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night.